Good morning. For those of you who heard me say it before, I still wish you a good morning. I stand by it. Welcome to Beaumont's State of the City event, the 2020 online because it's the pandemic version. My name is Peter Brown. I'm very pleased to be your MC this morning to talk about the future, a future when we can all gather in the same room to do business, to high five, to have fun, to just breathe each other's air again. And I would say December 16th is the perfect time for this event. We're a few days away from the shortest day of the year, which means soon we'll be getting more sunshine. The vaccine has arrived in Alberta. So however long this goes, whatever it's going to be, it does seem like we are nearer the end than the beginning. So what a great opportunity today to talk about life beyond the pandemic. What sorts of challenges Beaumont is going to face, what approaches might be helpful, what strengths the municipality can build upon moving forward, and also what we should be wearing to work once sweatpants are no longer considered business casual. I am going to miss that part. We have a great panel lined up this morning to talk about the questions and the opportunities that Beaumont faces as it moves forward into the future. And on top of that, this is a bonus, I'm here to help you get through the time until the pandemic ends. Because let's face facts, between now and then, you will be attending more online sessions. You will probably be hankering for that live in-person experience. And the good news is you can create the in-person experience at home. And I'm here to show you how. I recently did a series of videos that teach you how to create the live experience at home. I did those with my colleague, Donovan Workin. And I'd like to offer one of those short lessons now. So this will be your second major piece of learning this morning. You probably had a normal breakfast at home today. Let's hear it for the kitchen staff, i.e. yourself. So not as good as the usual food at the Beaumont State of the City event, but also you weren't eating conference food. You weren't eating live event food. That food you miss so much that says we're all together. So here is the first video that we did. This is Donovan to teach you how to create a breakfast at home that's conference good.
Hey Peter, sorry it's hard to hear you over the noise, but I'm preparing a conference breakfast. Why the hairdryer, you ask? Well, muffins, of course. Rock hard. Perfect. How about the classic scrambled eggs? Light, fluffy, cooked to perfection, but now add just a cup of water to make them nice and runny. There we go. Eggs à la conférence. And for the health conscious, slice a cantaloupe into impossibly thin slices, arrange on a plate, and then leave out in the sun. I've got a saying, if the cantaloupe's sweaty, it's conference ready. Now let's wash it down with a nice cup of coffee. I've filled my French press with over 2 cups of grounds, and instead of water, I'm gonna add vinegar. Oh, now that's gonna give you those stomach pains that say, you've got 6 hours of meetings. Bon appetit!
So there you go. Bring sweaty. The next time you're going to a virtual event, you will now know how to give yourself that perfect conference stomachache. That's another thing to look forward to as we move into the future. Just like the real thing. You're welcome. Now we officially begin this morning. I'm pleased to turn the proceedings over to Mayor John Stewart for some opening remarks. Mayor Stewart.
Thanks, Peter. Before I get started, let me say how grateful I am for the local businesses who usually cater this event with a meal that's far better than what we've just seen. I hope next year we can do this in person and enjoy the best Beaumont has to offer. Welcome everyone. Bienvenue à Beaumont. I would first like to acknowledge that the land on which I stand today is Treaty 6 territory and a traditional meeting ground and home for many Indigenous peoples. The City of Beaumont respects the histories, languages, and cultures of all First Peoples, whether they be of First Nations, Métis, or Inuit descent. Their presence continues to enrich Canada's vibrant communities. All the people here are beneficiaries of this peace and friendship treaty. Thank you to many of my colleagues for joining us today, and welcome to all of you. Just over 100 years ago, Spanish flu swept across most of the globe, including Canada. If you visit the St. Vital Cemetery, you'll see that Beaumont was not untouched. Today, we're facing a once-in-a-generation pandemic that might be different from the Spanish flu, but will likely have lasting impacts as we emerge from it. Let me be 100% clear on this point. Coronavirus has already taken about a dozen lives in Beaumont, and we must look after the health of our citizens. It's not a choice between people and the economy. If we don't look after people and we let the pandemic go, it will bring our economy down. But there will also be life after COVID. We have to look ahead and prepare for whatever that could be. There were many changes following the Spanish flu as societies and economies rebuilt. Many countries turned to science and made great technological and medical leaps. Telephone companies started building up infrastructure because human-operated phone systems were overwhelmed with so many people in quarantine trying to keep in touch. Innovations such as government-funded healthcare also emerged. We don't know what changes will come from COVID-19, but we need to start asking the big questions now and be ready for the possible answers. Questions such as, what will the workforce look like? How will that affect offices and internet service? What are the policy impacts if more people work from home? How might that affect public services, operations, and revenue? The pandemic has put huge financial strain on all levels of governments. In Alberta, the provincial government was already downloading responsibilities to municipalities and cutting funds. That trend will likely accelerate as the province attempts to dig out from a record deficit. Changing workforces, new models of business, more responsibilities, and less money. These pressures and more are all converging on municipal governments. None of us can say for sure what post-COVID societies and economies will look like. We can, however, make sure we're ready to adapt to those changes. During the last 3 years, Beaumont Council has been hard at work on an agenda of change. We started untangling red tape that stifled innovation and entrepreneurs. Our land use bylaw, once a difficult maze with 37 distinct zones, now only has 7. The bylaw is also now a living, breathing document. It is reviewed and amended regularly to remove barriers to business and development that no longer make sense. We approved a streamlined plan and design guidelines for Centreville that provide flexibility while still honoring our French heritage. Beaumont is also embracing innovation and emerging technology. The ELA autonomous shuttle was an example of that last year. We decided to boldly go where no regulation had gone before and put a self-driving vehicle on a public road for the first time in Western Canada. We're even challenging old approaches on a small scale. Our 3D crosswalk is an example of trying something new, learning from it, and adapting. If you're not familiar with that project, the city installed 2 crosswalks last year with a design that was supposed to appear 3-dimensional for drivers. It didn't work as well as we'd hoped, but the cost was little more than a few buckets of paint and some hours of labor. However, because we demonstrated that Beaumont is open to new ideas, ATS Traffic offered to pilot a 3D crosswalk using much more expensive thermoplastic technology at their own cost. If it is effective in protecting pedestrians, this crosswalk may be adapted and adopted in other communities. I'd like to think of Beaumont as a sandbox, a term that might be familiar with game and software developers. We're offering a place where if you can dream it, you can come to us and let's see if we can help make it happen. If you're working on a great idea, you want to test it for scalability, Beaumont is small enough where we can be nimble, yet large enough to be relevant. Our Collaboration and Business Innovation Center, COBIC, right here, is an example of how we're filling needs in the business community. COBIC opened last year as a solution for entrepreneurs who want a physical office where they can collaborate with like-minded people and scale up their business before they're ready for their own location. Heads are turning as a result of these actions. Our growing reputation is beginning to pay off with huge benefits for our residents and community just on the horizon. This year, we announced that we're in talks with a consortium of leading global technology firms to install a 10 gigabit per second broadband network beginning next year. If all goes as planned, every home and business would have access to the fastest technology available commercially in the world. It's about 100 times faster than the current average download speed in Canada. In a recent survey, residents were excited by the prospect of better service to their home, along with the opportunities for both schools and businesses. The pandemic has highlighted the need for fast, reliable internet service, and we're working to bring the best right here in Beaumont. It can be an enabler that unleashes the innovative potential that we've seen as Beaumont businesses pivoted their service model during the last several months. I think of Deanna Fitzmaurice at Vertu Boutique and how she embraced digital media to boost her online sales. A few months ago, she expanded her store in Centreville to deal with the increased demand. Or there's Beaumont's favorite, Chartier, where Sylvia and Darren adapted to the pandemic by offering meal and drink kits sold from their website. They also partnered with local businesses like Soul House Sweets to sell their products from the restaurant. Because in Beaumont, we lift each other up. The opportunities aren't just for business. Ultra-high-speed internet can be a game changer for schools and other sectors. Just this fall, we signed an MOU with Health City to explore the potential for healthcare delivery innovation that could be supported by a super fast network. The city continues to work with our business community through the current challenges, lifting restrictions for outdoor patios so restaurants can seat more guests in the summer, and opening a small park with benches in Centreville where shoppers and diners could visit. Our Open in Beaumont Shop Local campaign was done in partnership with the Chamber of Commerce, leveraging our mutual strengths for a greater benefit.
Hi guys, we're open in Beaumont and stay safe.
We're open in Beaumont.
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 We're open in Beaumont. We're open in Beaumont. Come on down.
We're open in Beaumont.
We're open in Beaumont.
We are open in Beaumont.
Yeah, we're open in Beaumont.
We're open in Beaumont.
Hi, we are open here at Beaumont.
Of course, while these are examples of how we're making Beaumont a great place to do business, it still has to be a great place to live. Following the map set by a new master plan, we're making significant investments in recreation culture. In addition to the newly modernized and expanded Beaumont Sport and Recreation Center, we're building 2 new outdoor rinks, a multi-use field and Four Seasons Park, as well with some new baseball diamonds and a dog park. We're working with the new Arts Council as well to explore the potential for a performing arts center, and with the library to plan expansion of their building. Our latest budget also supports construction of a town square in Centreville where organizations can host events, festivals, and markets. These investments are being made with a keen eye on fiscal responsibility. Here I can give a shout out to the leadership of Beaumont City Administration. Our CAO, Mike Schwartz, has been building a culture that isn't afraid to challenge old ways of doing things. It starts with trying new ideas, measuring the results, learning, and then adapting. That approach made such an improvement for our snow control program this year that for the first time I saw a thread on Facebook praising the city's work clearing the roads. It's unheard of. Working with city administration, our council was able to deliver a budget for next year that finds nearly $500,000 in savings and efficiencies, makes targeted investments to maintain and enhance services, and holds the line on taxes with no increase for 2021. We're also encouraging a culture in city administration and in the community that embraces diversity as a benefit. The lived experience of people from different backgrounds makes us stronger and more innovative with new ideas and perspectives. All of this together, building our reputation as a destination for business, working with the business community, investing in residents' quality of life, and supporting a culture of innovation and efficiency in our operations, position us well for whatever the future may hold. We initially set on this path to grow our non-residential tax base and continue to afford a high quality of life well into the future. And that work is paying off, by the way. In the last few years, the non-residential tax base has grown by 2 percentage points. That seems small, but consider that in a community growing as fast as Beaumont, the business property base had to grow 4 times faster than the residential base for that to happen. 2020 has been a challenging year. There's no overstating that. But the pandemic will end, and as we emerge, Beaumont is ready for a post-COVID society and economy. Council's strategic plan gives us a roadmap that not only builds innovation, but has resiliency and adaptability baked in, so that when we look back 100 years from now, or even 10 years, we will see this as the time Beaumont took action to shape its future rather than letting change wash over us. It will be the time when we laid the groundwork for Beaumont that is not only the safest community in Alberta and a great place to live, it also became a great place to start or grow a company, where it's not just a great place to raise a family, but it is a place where your children could find good paying skilled jobs so they can stay and raise a family of their own. It was a time when Beaumont chose to embrace the challenges it faced, make the hard decisions, and do the difficult work so that our community not only survived the pandemic, but we thrived. Anyway, we have a great panel discussion coming up right away. I'm looking forward to a very lively conversation with our guests, Dr. Wanda Costin and Doug Griffiths. They are both forward-looking people, and I am excited to hear their insights for the future of communities like Beaumont. Thank you for joining me online today to celebrate Beaumont's successes and share in the vision that is taking us into a new chapter as a city. Beaumont was built in a spirit of taking chances and working together, and that spirit will take us into a future of economic prosperity and strong community. Welcome to Beaumont. Our future begins here.
Many thanks to Mayor Stewart and to everyone who put that great video together. I am hungry for ice cream, and this is how strange 2020 is. I've never heard the words Facebook, praise, and snow clearing in any combination together before, so I am staggered and impressed by that. Before we get to the panel the mayor mentioned, we have one more thing for him to do. We have some special guests with us this morning, so please welcome him back. You may know him from that video you saw 10 seconds ago. Here is the mayor again to acknowledge a couple special guests.
Thanks, Peter. Yeah, no, it was a great video. It was a fun experience making it. I would like to take a couple seconds to acknowledge a few people that are with us today. First, I'd like to acknowledge my fellow council members that are here. Councillors Kathy Barnhart, Bill Daniluk, Perry Hendricks, Sam Munkoff-Swain, Martin Stout, Stephen Van Newkirk. Can't say enough about the work that they've done and put in over the last 4 years to get us to where we are. I truly appreciate them being on the team. As well, I'd like to give a warm Beaumont welcome to our federal and provincial representatives and some of my colleagues from the region. Our MP, Mike Lake, is here today, along with our MLA, Brad Rutherford, Mayor Bob Young from the city of Leduc, Mayor Ray Ralph from the city of Devon, Mayor Stuart Houston from Spruce Grove, and Mayor Alana Natu from Sturgeon County, along with one of her councillors, Patrick Teague. So welcome, and looking forward to a great panel discussion.
And thanks to everyone who's watching, everyone who's taking part. It's wonderful to have you with us this morning. We now turn to our much promised panel about the ways Beaumont and other communities can grow, can stay relevant, and can ensure that they are sustainable in the world after the pandemic, the world we are so much looking forward to. Mayor Stewart will be joined this morning by two great panelists, and their resumes are very impressive. Dr. Wanda Costin has devoted her career to fostering excellence and inclusion. She brings a collaborative approach and a wealth of experience from the military, private industry, and the academic world. She studied at Military Academy at West Point and holds graduate degrees from Washington State University in Pepperdine. Dr. Costin is currently Dean of the School of Business at MacEwan University, and her expertise in strategy and organizational behavior makes her an ideal person to take part in our discussion today. I wave hello to Dr. Wanda Costin. And in his many incarnations, Doug Griffiths has been a rancher, a teacher, a member of Alberta's legislature, and a provincial cabinet minister. He served as Minister for Municipal Affairs and Minister of Service Alberta, as well as holding portfolios in agriculture, finance, and the Office of the Solicitor General. Since he left politics in 2005, he has worked to help communities and organizations and businesses grow stronger. He's the author of 13 Ways to Kill Your Community. Oh, I said that a bit cheerfully. And president of his company, also called 13 Ways. I'm pleased to welcome the Honorable Doug Griffiths. I am waving hello. And of course, you know him from all the times he's appeared so far. He is the mayor, Mayor John Stewart. Hello again, Mayor. We've all missed you very much. We hope you're doing well since we last saw you sitting in that chair. One thing to say before we jump into this panel, it's going to go about 20 or 22 minutes. We are hoping to take some of your questions, which you can submit in the chat. Send it to us that way. You'll see a tab for Q&A, and we will try to get some in, but we have a lot to cover and some very interesting guests, so we'll do what we can. So I have a few topics. What I'm going to do is throw each one to one panelist first, and if the others want to jump in, just give me a little wave or a nod. I will be watching you closely, and you can weigh in. And also, panelists, you will have a chance at the very end. If we've missed something you want to get to, if there's a point you want to circle back on, I'll give you all the last word at the end. So don't worry if I get past you on a given question. So we are ready to begin. Mayor Stewart, will begin with you. Sounds like it's a quiz show. This is Geography for 10. You talked about some of the challenges and opportunities in Beaumont. Based on what you're hearing in the community, what do you see as the city's most important priorities for the next couple of years?
Well, the two biggest priorities that I currently see are the same things we've been working on for the last 4 years. We have to improve our local economy and enhance our quality of life. So in the short term, in terms of the economy, we're just trying to get our businesses through the pandemic so that they can survive and thrive. And long term, we need to keep cutting that red tape and putting the conditions into place so that they can grow and enhance themselves and survive. But nobody wants to live in a community that has no amenities. And so one of the quality of life issues that we're trying to deal with, I mentioned in my speech, we're just trying to make sure that our residents have the opportunity to know their neighbors, recreate in terms of mental health and things like that. So those are the two things we're working on: economy and quality of life issues.
Wanda Costin, I saw you nodding. Are there questions you think a community like Beaumont should be asking itself at this point as it looks to the future?
Hi, thanks. Delighted to be here. Beautiful city. I need to get out there when this pandemic is over. So first and foremost, yeah, I think one of the things that cities need to do is to act, literally act, do something. One of the biggest challenges that they have that we citizens look for is what are we doing? How are we doing? And then also to communicate regularly to the citizens and let them know what's going on. These are challenging times. We all know that. You're not going to please everyone all the time, but have the courage to actually engage with your citizens and the community members and to actually take action.
Doug Griffiths, if we want to follow the opposite advice of your book and not kill the community, what sorts of questions do you think are worth asking publicly at this point? Oh, and you need to unmute, sir.
I need one of those T-shirts that says you're on mute.
Yeah.
It's it's a question about what you want to be in the future. But the biggest issue is making sure that the public's aware that the world has changed. I mean, we built communities exactly the same since the 1950s with subdivisions and the way we designed our downtowns. And yet if the pandemic hasn't actually changed a lot, it has just sped up the changes that were already coming. More and more people, doesn't matter if they're semi-retirees or they're millennials or anyone in between, are now realizing how valuable being part of a community and a neighborhood is. So they don't want to live in housing projects anymore out on the suburbs. They want to live in a place where they can walk, they can socialize, they can go to a brew pub, they can go to a great restaurant like Chartier. They can be part of a neighborhood. And the challenge then is making sure that the public is aware that those changes are coming, that the way we design communities for the last 70 years doesn't work anymore, and it's not going to work going forward.
Chartier has been mentioned a bunch of times. I wonder, do I have to reserve now to get there post-pandemic? Next question goes, I won't ask you to answer that, but I assume it's a long list. Dr. Costin, as Beaumont looks to move forward, what are the best lessons the municipality can learn from the private sector? Are there lessons in that model that can be applied to Beaumont?
Yeah, I'm impressed. I have to say, I didn't know a lot. I'm a U.S. citizen, so I didn't know a lot about Beaumont itself. But the first thing I would recommend is what you're already doing, which is have an openness to pilot and to try new things that don't cost a lot, but just send this message that we're going to do some things that are new and different so that it keeps you vibrant, much like Doug was saying, right? Things are changing. The second I would say is don't overanalyze. One of the biggest frustrations, I'm in the public sector as well in university, and I call it analysis paralysis. It drives me crazy. Like, can we just do something? And when I had the luxury of teaching, one of the things I used to say to my students is, here's the way you need to look at things. Can you gather 80 to 85% of the information you need to be 80% confident that the decision you're making is correct 80 to 85% of the time? Now, when I talk to my business colleagues, they say, girl, that's way too much. You need to be down in the 70s. So that just shows you that I'm still, and I'm cutting edge. You know, most university folks think I'm cutting edge. Oh, she's moving too fast. And yet business is like, 85 is pretty much a sure bet. So you need to lower that number. So that's the advice I would give.
Doug Griffiths, anything to add?
No, it's very well said.
Let me just point out during this slightly awkward pause that I'm old enough that I was down in the 70s. Well, let's move on. Let's move on to our next question then. This one is for Doug Griffiths. Let's talk about challenges as municipalities contemplate not just survival, but growth. What are the major challenges they face, and what sort of approaches do those challenges call for?
So I mentioned this already. I'd say the first biggest challenge is recognizing we have to design our communities differently, bringing housing back downtown, bringing aesthetics and beauty back downtown, bringing socialization opportunities back downtown. I mean, over the last 70 years, we built subdivisions that pushed everybody out at 5 o'clock to go home in the suburbs. And then they didn't come back downtown because it was a long drive, or why commute? So the restaurants lost their evening business, which made them unviable. So they closed. And then there was no place to socialize downtown. So what we've got is cores where people go down and buy stuff. And then over the last 20 years, they've learned to buy stuff from Amazon. And so we've gutted our own community. So we have to go back to putting housing back on Main Street, to putting socialization back on Main Street. But it's going to take some work to get the public to understand why we have to do things different, why aesthetics matter, why beauty matters, why those twinkle lights change the atmosphere and the mindset about the vibrancy of downtown. And then the second, I think, is broadband. I'm very happy that the federal government is absolutely committed to broadband. In the United States, it's $80 billion back to the last 20 million people that don't have it. Because again, the pandemic hasn't changed this, it's just sped it up, that we now appreciate community more than ever, but we also know how much we can do online. I mean, my kids spent the last half of the year, and I mean, they've been the last few weeks learning online. They're going to do healthcare online. They're going to do all sorts of things online. But now, fundamentally, I mean, my parents used to move to where the jobs were, but now the jobs are moving to where people want to live. And that's the real core about what we need to do. But convincing the public that the world is not all just about utility, It is about aesthetics. It is about socialization is going to be challenging, which is why this event is one of the best events I have seen all around North America to engage the public to understand how the world is changing.
Do you think, Doug, that our definition or our sense of what a community is has changed as well?
I think it is changing but we haven't had the discussion. I mean, we still hear people talk about community, but I mean, I have an honors degree in philosophy, and the first rule of that is to define your terms. And we haven't even defined our terms about what community means now while we're debating what we're going to build. So we need to redefine it and understand that it has changed dramatically.
How much of that resonated with you, Mayor Stewart?
A fair bit, because that's largely the way we've been thinking right now. And as I was saying it before, as we were chatting before the event started, but everything has changed, and the pandemic, and I'll repeat this, has really driven home that we need to think about different ways of doing things. More people are working from home. More people are doing school from home. So how do we capture that and still get them out into our parks and our spaces and get them to gather and socialize and interact when they're not moving as much as they used to? And so those are the things that we need to keep in mind and look at as we design the community for the future. And so far, Beaumont, I think, is doing a great job of trying to anticipate some of those things and move them forward.
Yeah. Wanda Costin, any thoughts about either community or challenges moving forward?
Yes, actually, I do appreciate Doug sharing his background as a philosopher. I'm a sociologist. And the two things, as I was listening to you, that resonated for me is this notion of social connectedness and sense of belonging. Those are going to be critical. Just on listening to Doug, you defined those terms very well, and listening to the mayor. So if people are working and staying home more, how do we create a sense of community and connectedness and a sense of belonging? We're like, I belong here. And of course, you can see how I present to the world as an African-American woman. What does that mean for people that perhaps traditionally have been disenfranchised? And how do we invite them in and make them really feel comfortable, welcoming, invited, and part of the community?
So we have a philosopher and a sociologist, and I'm an English major. Mayor Stewart, do you have any liberal arts degrees you want to brag about at this point, or should we keep moving?
No, I think we should keep moving, unfortunately.
All right, we'll keep moving. We'll go back. We so rarely get to say, I did English in university. Dr. Costin, Mayor Stewart mentioned diversity in his remarks, and this is another question this is a discussion that has reopened yet again. When a community becomes more diverse and more inclusive, what sorts of social and economic benefits does that bring with it?
Well, first and foremost, Canada likes to position itself as this welcoming environment for immigrants, right? Which means by default, you're going to have a group of people who did not begin their lives in this country. We will not go into the whole land situation because everybody here did not begin on this land, right? This isn't our land per se, right? But what I would say is, I heard a great analogy the other day. And what it was is, consider the demographics of your community, whatever that is. So Beaumont. And if you're not leveraging and creating opportunities for all of those citizens, you're actually missing out. Beaumont can only be as good as the collective, the group of people that are there to enhance and be committed to the community. So if you are not creating and opening yourselves to folks from Africa, the Caribbean, different parts of Europe, I understand we have a large Punjabi community. If those people don't feel connected, you're actually not going to maximize the best of what Beaumont can be, because they don't feel connected and belonging and can contribute in real and meaningful ways. The best and brightest aren't just white and male anymore. I know that's hard for you gentlemen to understand, but they're not. And so if we're not, look at Peter, you cracked me up. Look in your face. What?
We had a good run. Old white guys had a good run, and now we passed the baton.
Can I get an amen? But the key is to create opportunities for these people to add value, because they think differently. They have different perspectives. They've had different life experiences. And what the mayor and Doug are talking about is leveraging that so that Beaumont becomes a great place to live and be and do business.
Doug, how does this dovetail with the way you were talking about community a couple minutes ago?
Well, the research that we've been doing about how communities are changing, the younger generations, even older generations, are attracted to diversity. They want diverse foods to eat. They want diverse cultural events. They want to hear people speaking different languages and who look different from them. And if we get this sense that a community is homogeneous and just one type of person, you're not going to attract the next generation. They've got a whole world to choose from. And if you're boring because there's no diversity and no energy, then I think it's going to undermine you. And in fact, I point out all the time, the ICD, the Institute of Corporate Directors, did research and found that the best run companies had the most diverse board of directors. And I fully admit that I was one of those guys that when I was younger, because I was taught this, you got to have the best and the brightest, people who are qualified to run companies. Well, that was a bunch of middle-aged white males. And you know what you get with MBAs? And you know what you get when you get a bunch of white males with MBAs in a room together? One opinion, because they all have the same background. You need diversity to have energy and excitement, and that's what makes your community better. And if you don't have that diversity, then you're going to have a tough time attracting people who are looking for those cultural experiences to be part of, and they'll go somewhere else. But Beaumont doesn't have that. Beaumont is exactly the diversity that everybody else should be trying to replicate, which I think you should be very proud of.
Yeah. Mayor Stewart, what is Beaumont doing, and what will Beaumont do to foster and to tap into the diversity of the community?
Yeah, actually, it's an initiative that actually is newly come to our council. We've just put in place over the last year the initial steps to start trying to increase our citizens panels and try to gather those information and incorporate it into our long-term plans. So we're starting with baby steps, but we're moving forward in a rapid way and trying to incorporate those different voices.
I'll throw this next question back to Doug Griffiths. This has come up a couple times. There are predictions that now that people have experienced working from home, some people are getting to like it. Some companies, some nonprofits are getting to like not having to house people in shared spaces. What would an increase in working from home mean for municipalities, and what kind of policy questions does it demand be considered?
Well, I think working from home is not going to go away. I mean, since I retired from politics, I worked from home, and it adds a lot of flexibility. And this pandemic has showed a lot of companies the productivity has gone up, and their employees do like the opportunity to work when it's convenient for them and give them that flexibility. What they have found, though, is that as productivity has increased, creativity has been in decline, and team building has been in decline, which I continue to suggest doesn't mean people are going to go back to an office environment. They're going to go seek out co-working spaces. We have DOSC, the Drunken Ox Sober Cat, where our team goes and meets once a week back before the pandemic, and will once this is over, and spend the day back there having lunch and talking and working. We don't need an office space and all the overhead that goes with it. And I think the challenges it's going to present is that most downtowns are going to experience probably a consistent 30% vacancy rate until people figure out what to do to restructure those buildings. And so the biggest policy challenges that a lot of communities are going to have are going to be around how to repurpose that workspace, maybe some changes to tax policies, because it's going to be a massive hit to the income for municipalities, since property taxes are one of the most significant ways they collect their taxes. And then they're also going to have to find compelling ways to rebuild communities. So we have even our policies around land use say that all the office buildings go over there and all the housing goes out there, and now we're going to need a lot more mixed use. And so it's going to be policies like that are going to need to change. And the only way they're going to change is when mindsets are firmly changed, that the way we've done things for the last 70 years is about to be rapidly undone.
Wanda Costin, I saw a lot of nodding there. Did you want to weigh in on that?
No, I defer to the expert, but what I will say is I think he's right on point, right? I think there's a challenge we have in terms of how to let people have flexibility, but still create a community, right? So that things like this new format is amazing, right? It allows you to jump around and meet a bunch of people. But it also changes at a downtown university, it changes how those spaces are used. Now, we're not near Beaumont, but if you were in Edmonton and you just needed a place to go hang out, actually McEwen's a great place to be. People don't think about it that way. It's kind of like, oh, that's the ivory tower. Don't go into McEwen unless you're a student. That's actually not true. And we in the School of Business are trying to create opportunities with our neighbors, both those who are disenfranchised and those who are business leaders, right? So I think Doug's hit upon something about how do we leverage that? I will say this, it's also a shift fundamentally, as he was saying earlier, in that business folks often thought we have to be, it's the Frederick Taylor back in the 1800s. I have to actually see what you do to document that you're being productive. And what we've found is actually, no, I don't. And that people are so committed to their organizations, we actually have to tell them to turn off the computer and to stop working, right? That's how committed they are. So it's actually the opposite.
Mayor Stewart, I just saw a thoughtful from you there. What does more working from home mean for Beaumont, and how are you approaching that?
Well, yeah, I'll defer to the expertise of my fellow panelists, but I know that when the pandemic hit and we started to have our office staff work from home, we found that our production didn't really change. A lot of people thrived in it, which is opening up a whole bunch of possibilities, because at the City of Beaumont, it goes right back to that office space. We're looking at starting to look, as we take care of our quality of life issues, we're starting to look at infrastructure issues for our city employees. And one of the things that we're having problems with is office space in our city hall. And the pandemic sort of driven home that perhaps we don't need office space. Perhaps we just need some flexible work policies to be able to enable our employees to contribute in meaningful ways. But you got to watch the danger there, because I know as much as we move out, people still need to feel connected and feel brought in. So you can't be shipping them off and saying never come to the office and we'll never see you, because there is value in having those hallway conversations with your employees or with your fellow workers in the lunchrooms, in the hallways, and at the water cooler. So it's going to present a lot of challenges, but it opens up a whole new range of possibilities.
Yeah, I was wondering about that last point. Does anyone have any ideas for how to keep that hallway conversation spirit alive, where, the accidental or the casual moment might lead to something great for the business? Doug, do you have any thoughts on that?
Well, that's why I think co-working space was very popular. It has been for a while, but I think it will grow. We were working in one community. They had co-working space, but it would look very sterile. It wasn't a creative space. It just looked like a bunch of desks that people could go work at. So we helped them with a redesign, and they colored it up, and they created small rooms where they could work together, larger tables. There was a lot of shared space, and they actually found right away they had from their neighbor a large urban center 35 minutes away. Because they were in the midst of closing down their office space for budget cuts, but also realizing they didn't need it, goes there once a week now. And now they're almost at capacity, because so many people are looking for co-working space where they can have the team come together for a day, be creative, do some team bonding stuff, get those synergies, and then they spend the other 3 days a week at home working, because they went to a 4-day work week too. So, that's just one of many options. There are, I see, and now I lost it, but somebody posted parking requirements. The city of Edmonton is starting to change their policies around parking requirements, because and here I have a presentation called Everything's About to Change. With the advent of autonomous vehicles, my estimate is we're going to need maybe 20% of the vehicles we currently have on the road, since they'll be running on algorithms that pick people up. My kids don't even care if they get their driver's license. They're 14 and 12. They have full intentions of having an app that calls it up when they need it, and they don't need to have it in a 3-car garage out in the suburbs. So we're not going to have as many vehicles on the road. So we have more opportunity for public space that can bring people together.
So you're not going to have to teach your kids to drive? Congratulations.
Well, I'm still showing the oldest one, but I got to almost drag him out to get him in there. So, which is funny, because a lot of the next generation thinks, why would I own a A vehicle that costs me, according to Stats Canada, $10,000 a year to operate and sits parked 95% of the time. It is the worst use of resources, and it also is the #1 killer of Canadians and Americans for non-disease related deaths. Like, so, I think the world, and those are only, they're going to be very dominant within the next 7 years.
This is my last official question. Mayor Stewart, I'll ask you the bad news, good news question first. As you look forward, what are the chief obstacles you see, maybe the top 2 or 3, and what are the biggest strengths Beaumont can bring to facing those challenges?
Well, I wouldn't necessarily say we have obstacles, but we do have 2 pressures, and the 2 significant ones that I can think of off the top are financial and shaping growth. As we all know, we got senior levels of government that are facing unprecedented debt levels. We're getting downloads all the time on municipalities, and so as we collect tax dollars from our residents, it's going to be up to council and administrations to really scrutinize how we're spending those dollars and making sure that we're spending them appropriately and making the investments into infrastructure and providing the services that the residents actually need. In terms of shaping growth, we just recently did a survey, and our residents are really happy about our focus on economic development and economic growth, but they don't want to lose the feel of the community. They worry about traffic. They worry about not knowing their neighbor, because in Beaumont, we have a great community. People know their neighbors. We have a massive ability to rally around people that are having issues and having trouble, and we don't leave people behind in Beaumont. And so we don't want to lose that as we grow. In my opinion, the way to solve that issue is the same, is to make sure we're engaging our residents on those issues and making sure we get the feedback we need to make the appropriate decisions. And so recently, one of the tools that we implemented is a citizen panel tool, where a survey comes out and residents can provide feedback, and then we can correlate it. And those are going to be ongoing over time. And so that's sort of the things that we're doing to shape those. In terms of advantages, I could talk about lots, but really a good couple of them. We have a young, well-educated workforce. We're close to a bunch of major amenities. We have education, hospitals, all within 5 to 10 minutes. Beaumont itself has a willingness to take risks and try new things and be innovative and dynamic. And so as long as we can continue to grow at this rapid rate and maintain that small town feel, I think we're in good shape.
Does Doug or Wanda want to add anything to that before we move to last words? Everybody's good. All right, in that case, boy, this has flown by. We're a few minutes from wrapping up. Does anyone want to circle back to a point we might have missed, or leave us with a quick last word or takeaway? And I will go counterclockwise on my screen. So Doug Griffiths, anything you want to leave us with, or anything we should have considered?
Yeah, I think there's, I said a lot of mindsets have to change and people have to be brought along through that change. One of the biggest adaptations we're going to have to address over the next 10 to 15 years is that municipal governments are the most important level of government. I know we say that all the time, but right now when we're going to be dealing with those social changes and housing developments and beautification and socialization and new technologies like autonomous vehicles, it's municipalities that are going to have to deal with those changes. People are moving to the neighborhoods and the communities they want to live in, not subdivisions anymore, which again makes municipalities front and center the most important level of government, because now that people have the ability to choose to live anywhere on earth, they're picking the community they want to live in. It's not the federal government or the provincial government that's going to be able to address that. It's the municipalities. And yet the municipalities are one of the least robustly funded levels of government. And so I think we're going to have to change our mindset. And maybe it's like a return to ancient Greece where the city state is most important. But if we don't start focusing on those communities people want to live in and getting those resources in place to add quality of life and to deal with these adaptations, and continue to think that the federal issues are always paramount, I think we're going to wind up backwards, and we're going to lose competitive advantages over our quality of life, and the rest of the world's going to eat our lunch. And it's not just Canada that has to address that, or Alberta. It's all of North America that has to deal with that.
See, this is the risk if you have a philosopher, is you are going to hear about ancient Greece at some point, right? And someone's going to bring up Socrates in the forum, right? Wanda Costin, anything you would like us to, I promise not to mention your credentials anymore. Any last words or last thoughts from you?
Thanks so much, Peter. Yeah, actually, I wanted to talk about a bit the one question we have, which is how important is innovation? I think innovation is critical for economic development, but I think it has to shift a bit. At least in Edmonton, we seem to be incredibly focused on tech, right? And technology is important, but it's not everything. And I think Beaumont could really situate itself well in the Edmonton greater area if it were to create opportunities for different types of folks with different ideas and entrepreneurs to come there and start their businesses, but not just tech, right? That would be a really key way to differentiate yourself on top of what I've seen today. If y'all were closer and I could get into McEwen faster, I might be relocating. But I think innovation and entrepreneurship are connected, and the degree to which Beaumont can create a safe space for people to come and pilot new ideas and then implement them, I think that could be a game changer for you.
Now, Mayor Stewart, you can either offer a last word on the panel, or we can wrap up the panel and then move to your last words on the event. Would you like column A or column B?
It's sort of a chicken and the egg thing.
Yeah,
I've really enjoyed the panel. I mean, it's been a great discussion. We've covered a lot of ground and went into some really cool topics and given lots of things to think about. And it's nice to hear my fellow panelists and their views, because it just so confirms a lot of the things that we're trying to accomplish, and hopefully we're on the right track. And I'm going to continue to hopefully pick their brains and as we go forward to keep going. But yeah, no, it's been a great panel, and I do truly appreciate the time spent today.
Wonderful. So, Mayor, stick around, and we'll have your official last words in a moment. Wanda Costin and Doug Griffiths, it's been an absolute delight. Very nice to meet you here, and I look forward to seeing you, I hope, in real life out in the community at some point. And now, John Stewart, because all you've done so far is the welcome, the video, the acknowledgements, and the panel, I need to give you a little more camera time. Any closing words before I say goodbye?
Thank you very much. No, I do appreciate it. I love this event. It's a great time to be able to bring people together and give the state of the community and perhaps be a little bit inspirational. I'd like to thank everybody for joining us today. I do truly appreciate the support we get from people coming. I really want to give a special thank you to Dr. Wanda Costin and Doug Griffiths. As I said just 2 minutes ago, their insights are amazing. Can't say enough. They've given us a lot to think about. And thank you, Peter, for hosting today. It's not an easy job to put this together, and I do appreciate all you've done for us. And hopefully we can do it all again next year. Just so everybody knows, we are going to keep the room open for a bit, so that feel free to stay and socialize and hot tables. And hope next year we'll be able to either do this in person, or maybe we'll do a type of hybrid event, because this technology was kind of cool, actually. Thank you very much, everybody.
Wonderful. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. And thanks to everyone who's been watching. Thank you for your attention. Do take care. Be safe. We're not up to the end yet, but I hope to see you in real life in the not too distant future in a certain restaurant. You know which one. So happy mingling. Have a great week and a wonderful holiday, and bye.